Thank you.
And without further ado, I'm going to bring up our fearless founder, Jeanette Stewart, and she's going to walk us through the story of Translation Commons and also some of the great initiatives we've been involved in for a while.
Thanks so much. Hi, everyone.
What do we do
Oh,
for this one? Okay.
Great. Hi, everyone. So a very brief history going back into memory lane. Translation Commons was incorporated and made into a public charity. When we asked for nonprofit status, they interviewed us, and after the interview, they said, no, you're not just a nonprofit, you're a charity, a public charity. So that was great that we were regarded like that. Of course, now we had to follow and we had to make all those things that we promised we'll do in order to be this public charity. So we started by creating an online platform, which went live in 2016. And it was a community and a place where we wanted every professional in the language industry to be able to come and find something of use, whether that was a free tool that they wanted to check, whether it was a free course, whether it was any of the free resources that are available on the internet. There's tons of free resources, but trying to coordinate them all into a single place where you can categorize them and people can come and look at them like a small library was a task that we did back then. And of course, we had a lot of working groups. These working groups were very new at the time because the concept of commons, a community online, was just then in 2014, 15, and 16 being, developed. So one of the most active working groups that we've had of those very first years was the professors group. The reason this became very successful and active was because professors at the time had issues of helping. They wanted to be able to help their students integrate into the professional life after they graduated. Of course, the conundrum was always everybody wanted 2 or 5 years of experience. They didn't have them. So one of the solutions that the working group found was to create a fake LSP on the Translation Commons platform where the students could come and do various projects and thus have the experience, be able to put it on their resume, but most importantly, be able to answer questions in the interviews. Which is one of the most difficult things. If you haven't worked on a project, you can't really speak about something like that in the interviews and show your skills. So that went on for quite a long time. And in 2019, UNESCO came up with the International Year of Indigenous Languages. And they said that, no language left behind. And we said, hold on a second. We've been saying this since 2014. We got to be involved in this program. And our first slogan, of course, since 2014 was no language and no linguist left behind. And we partnered with the International Year of Indigenous Language, which is a UNESCO program. And we did quite a lot of events for them, 32 events around the world. They asked for one. We scaled it up. We did 32 events because we had all these professors. It was very easy, for us to reach out and scale those events. We did a social media campaign that they asked for us, but then we sat back and we said, what else would be good to do? And one of the things that some people in the room already were involved was that nobody really has written down how to digitize a language because the main languages have already been digitized. If you're a language community, you don't know what you need to do. So our experts created the very first Zero to Digital guideline of how to bring a language online. So that was a very successful year, and that brought the desire from our advisors and our volunteers to be more committed to this digitization of languages. So we created the Language Digitization Initiative, and we created more zero to digital guidelines. We started creating keyboards for whichever community would approach us and wanted, a keyboard, didn't have one. And we also started creating events where we were promoting various in digitization initiatives, projects from different countries, different languages, sometimes academic, sometimes from advocates. And these events continued until today. We still do events with UNESCO. And since then, we have been also partnered with the International Decade of Indigenous Languages. And now, just a month ago, we have a formal partnership of consultative status with UNESCO. So we're getting involved with more and more programs. So this is where we are today. And very briefly, I'm going to go over some of our programs. So I already mentioned the Language Digitization Initiative, and that is our biggest program, and we'll be talking a lot more about it because I'm going to break it down to the various projects within this initiative. But other projects and programs that we have done in the past was, for example, the COVID-19 poster. At the very first 3 months of COVID, we realized that a lot of the indigenous communities around the world will not be able to understand what they need to do. So our advisory board decided to take the WHO 5 steps of how, do the 5 as we used to call it back then, of the precautions. And after sitting together for hours and hours in trying to internationalize it, not just the graphics, but also the message. And the message had to be simple. Then we created a poster where we attached it to the Panlex database, which was able to bring up a lot of the existing dictionary words that were in existence there and start building those sentences. That went out to various communities, and volunteers would request edit rights and they will correct it. And then those posters were available for download, and they were able to print them, for example, and put them at the grocery store. So the other people that didn't know the dominant languages were able to read it in their own languages. If they weren't literate, they were able to see the pictures. So we did about 350 of these posters. 4 of them were not even on Unicode at the time. We had to create them from scratch for them. There was a great demand for this, and people were very, very thankful that they were able to help their communities. I'm not going to go into detail for the other 2, but the other 2 also, again, has to do with indigenous languages, the child safety line. The families of indigenous communities where the parents are not aware of the digital world, but their kids have phones, are not aware of how to have parental control. So we were trying to create those elements that will assist and keep the children safe. And Interpreter Commons is always a community of interpreters trying to find out where we are in the digital world and how can we help all the other languages. So moving on, I want to talk about some of our partners. These are not all of our partners. In various times, we had other partners as well, including media partners like Women in Localization and Gala and so on. But these are the important partners that we actually create projects with and programs. Obviously, UNESCO, I've already mentioned it, and further down, I will tell you some more details. The International Decade of Indigenous Languages, a program within UNESCO, and also the International Year of Indigenous Languages, again, a program. But also open source medical supplies. That is a nonprofit which, during the pandemic, realized the scarcity of the medical supplies. So what they did is they created instructions on how to create medical supplies with resources that were found locally. That we translated in 40 languages. We had about 80 translators. A lot of these documents, and there were a lot of documents, I think about 70 documents or something. Most of these documents were highly technical, so it was a very, very a big project. People-centered internet we're still working with them. We're doing a newsletter for them every a couple of months that they issue their newsletters. And they're very much involved in making the internet people-centered, as it says. So, you know, you can look them up on the internet and find more things on them. Now, getting back to the Language Digitization Initiative, our main aim is to bridge the digital divide. Having said that, we cannot do it. The communities themselves have to do it. So we need to follow the lead of the communities and to assist them or help them when they need something and what it is that they ask for us. And this will, of course, help the linguistic diversity and cultural preservation for the world. And also, for us being language professionals, it ensures that sustainability of the language industry and the future of the languages. Now, we're talking about digitization, but if you have a language and a script which is not enabled digitally, how do you go about doing this? Okay, you need some basics, and these basics are, you know, you start from the script encoding with the standards. You create fonts, you create input methods like a keyboard, and whether it's virtual or whether it's a real keyboard. And of course, you need some data in order to put into CLDR, which will go then to the various applications that are required for you to be able to see your language on your phone. Now, this is, of course, the very basic, but there are languages and scripts out there that don't have this. But everything is layers. No language is exactly in the same state as every other language. It's completely unique. Some languages are a lot more digitized, have a larger footprint, digital footprints than others. So if we were to look around and we'd say, how can we layer all of these? You can see immediately that we start with the initial implementation of all the keyboards and all the fonts that we need. We move to the standards. We already covered all of these, but these are now more layers coming in. We have the script, the glyphs, the dictionaries, all the things that define a language. And finally, we have all the apps that are using the languages, which can be social apps like Facebook, Messengers, WhatsApp. It could be translation tools like cat tools. It could be, you know, office tools, Word, and so on. And finally, we also have all the online tools and dictionaries and data. So this is, again, a different way of saying what we did before, going a layer further down. And then we tried to go even broader and say, okay, if every language has a different footprint, what are the elements that define this footprint? And we are covering here not just the script, which is, you know, what we already covered, but we're covering content, language issues, the morphology of the language, the revitalization, the standardization of the language. We're covering the education, and the education is not only the education in the language, it's also the education of linguists, of professionals who actually open up those windows between this community and other communities. The employment, not just the linguists, but the opportunities that the digital ecosystem can provide to the community for employment and economy. And finally, the automation tools. There are a lot of languages that have millions and millions of speakers, but they don't have the automation tools for many, many reasons. There are also some not so widely spread languages that have automation because the community had realized and insisted in pursuing this technological advancement. And of course, since every language is different, you can never put who is where, but the important thing I want to say at this point is that in order for a language to be fully digitized, it needs to have multiple stakeholders, multiple partners, multiple coordinators, and multiple people invested in making this work. Which is my next slide. I actually was ahead of myself a bit. However, I do want to point out here where the language industry professional comes in. It is our expertise that is going to help the communities. And whether this is language technology or whether it is linguistic, expertise, we need to step up. We're the ones that can help them. Now, here are some projects. We categorize them that we do tools, we create resources, and we also have online events with UNESCO. So when it comes to our tools, we do keyboards and a morphologizer, and I'll give you some more details in a minute. In the resources, we create the Zero to Digital series, which is a series of guidelines, which again, I will give you some more details. Videos, trainings. We did a Sunuwar pilot, which again, I'll give you some more details. So breaking down this, let's start with the Zero to Digital guidelines. Our very first one was a guide to bring your language online. And it was, at the time, we presented it in 2019 at the Language Technology for All in Paris, in UNESCO, as part of the closing of the International Year of Indigenous Languages. And it was received with, great success. A lot of people were interested. It was downloaded quite a lot. And that made us realize that, hey, we just scratched the surface here. There's so much more we need to say. So our second book was data gathering. It's not just the data collection, it's also how to do it, and it's also why you need to do it. And explaining that to the communities when there are issues about data sovereignty is very, very important for them to understand what they do with their own data. Terminology. How do you explain email in a language that doesn't have that word? How do you create this word? The Cherokee say lightning leaf.
Lightning paper.
Paper, lightning paper, in their language, of course, and so on. At the moment, we have in progress the community outreach. It's a very important topic. How do you speak with Indigenous communities and what the Indigenous communities should expect? How do you build this trust? The font design, very, very important. Creating content. So fine, you have a keyboard. Maybe your script is or isn't approved by Unicode. Nonetheless, if you have the keyboard, you can create some content. So that will help you with the Unicode proposal. The morphologizer, the pilot that we just did, we're also creating a guideline, how to go about creating the morphology, the automated morphology for your language, and so on. The keyboard creation. Keyboard, as we know, is very important, and the implementation is based on the community's feedback. The community needs to be very, very much engaged in helping us understand what it is they're trying to achieve for us to be able to create the keyboard. And of course, we're creating a prototype that needs to be tested. We also will create documentation for them, to train them, to assist them, to help them. And of course, the communities have the last say in everything. I believe our team has created about 15 keyboards at the moment. Yes, and I think a few more are in the progress. The morphologizer, we decided to use the Cherokee language as a pilot for us. First of all, because we have contacts with the Cherokee Nation. Also, they are very engaged in their language development. They're active revitalizing their language. And they also have a very complex verb morphology. And because of this, we thought that we will focus the morphologizer on the verbs only. Um, in case anybody in the room doesn't know what a morphologizer is, you may have already read it, but basically it's a component that performs morphological analysis. And it breaks down the words into morphemes and predicts the grammatical features. Uh, moving on, the Sunuar case study, we met an advocate and representative of the Sunuar community in 2019, and they had tried to do a Unicode proposal for their script 10 years ago, and it had failed. It didn't pass. So they thought that they could never digitize their language. So we sat together and we helped them prepare and help them get to that stage they needed to get in order for their proposal to Unicode to pass. And true enough, 2 years later, it did pass. So now we're still actively helping with the font design and, we're helping them with the apps as well. But the community reported to us an increase in literacy and the success that they has and the love that the people have given to the ability to be able to be digital with their language. Now, I mentioned our UNESCO partnership, and we did a lot of things to get to the stage that we are today to sign a formal partnership. We started with a partnership with one of their programs in 2019. At that stage, when they were impressed with our 32 events instead of one and with our Zero to Digital document, they asked us to be part of the ad hoc committee that was creating the action plan for the International Decade of Indigenous Languages, which we did, and we formulated a paragraph within the action plan that deals with language technology. Then our relationship continued through those 2 years prior to the decade with online events that we were doing. But in 2022, when the decade started, again, we had a formal partnership with the program. And at that time, we announced, we did our first online event with presenters and announced the start of the decade with UNESCO. Since then, we have been working with them on various projects, obviously always on the indigenous languages and the decade and assistance, but we are also asked to be part of the expert committee for the World Atlas of Languages. And our expertise was such that we actually now have a whole team of people working for the Atlas. And in today, we, as I mentioned, we just signed the contract, and we're moving on into consultation status. And already, while we were in Paris for the Language Technology for All in February, we were asked to help with a new program altogether, which is in a different sector, which is the Open Educational Resources. Now, one of the things that UNESCO asked us to do is to take our publications and the ones, of course, that are still in process and create abridged versions so they can go on the UNESCO library. And these abridged versions, we are drafting them with UNESCO's input. So we're together on this one. And we are, they are going to act as being put together as a policy, part of a policy brief that is going to go to the 200 members, state members of UNESCO, to help them understand and help their indigenous communities digitize. The World Atlas of Languages is a website that has been going on for a while. And the previous version broke and came offline a couple of years ago. And since then, the decision was made to improve it, but also not to repeat the same mistakes that they had done before. So in this current version, they want to have an authoritative platform for reporting tools that the UNESCO governments and their representatives, whom we're calling focal points, can find easy to navigate, update data. And this data is going to be used for policy making for these countries. They also want to have a great user experience for all the visitors of the website and to make sure that the findings that we have in the data are accurate and credible and correct. In Paris in February, a couple of weeks ago, the second language technology for all conference occurred. And during this conference, UNESCO announced that they would create a language technology roadmap. So they invited a very small editorial group, including ourselves. And we have been working for the last 2 weeks in drafting the very first draft of the language technology roadmap, which takes the findings from the conference, takes into consideration other elements and other, declarations from UNESCO, and suggests an action plan for the next 5 to 10 years of how language technologies should work for the World Atlas of Languages, the UNESCO programs like the Decade, and so on. So at the moment, we're doing the draft. It will soon go out over the next month for consultation to various members, and it will be published hopefully within the next few months. Now, we've mentioned events and online events. We work with UNESCO to create international days, events around an international day. So we always, every year, we have the International Translation Day on September 30th that we create our online event together. But we also occasionally will have a second event, which is again going to go around a theme from another international day. So you can see from our past events that we did the World Indigenous People Day, and then we also did the World Day of Cultural Diversity. This year, because of the LT for All, we are not doing a second event, so we're only going to do the International Translation Day in September 30th, and stay tuned for that. And it's online, so you can, and it's also free, so you can, log in and watch it. So the Open Educational Resources is a new project for us. We're just now starting to learn about it, but basically it's a competency framework for teachers, and it's also creating guidelines for the inclusion of learners with disabilities. And the most important thing that we're going to contribute is the digital toolkit. I'm going to pass it on back to Patrick.
Thanks, Jeanette. So Jeanette just talked about what it is we do and why we do it. We're going to take a little bit of time now to talk about how we do it. It takes a village in the sense that we rely not only on a number of teams that we're going to talk about now, internal to Translation Commons, but even more essentially a large worldwide network of volunteers from different walks of life with different skills, different backgrounds, different language skills. And in a few minutes, Smita from our talent team is going to walk us through some of that. Here are the different teams in a nutshell. So a lot of what Jeanette just talked about is under the LDI advisory board for keyboards, events, and guidelines. What we're going to go over today is more on the operations side of things. So we're going to walk through the talent team, localization team, website team, marketing, and engineering. And the reason we're doing this, and Smita will talk more about this, we really believe that so many different people are able to bring their skills to Translation Commons and help in what is a very noble mission. Now, this is going to be the tricky part of the evening, but I'll see what I can do given some of our AV limitations. We're not entirely sure if the couple of videos from two of the teams that we're about to play are going to work for folks online. That's the bad news, the potential bad news. The good news is you should at least be able to follow along the slides. And the additional good news is if you're not able to hear the audio, we should be able to follow up with videos afterwards. So let's see how this goes. Fingers crossed.
Welcome to the localization team at Translation Commons. We're thrilled to have you with us. The localization team is structured to maximize efficiency. This means that although we're placed under the general heading of operations, we have the autonomy to make our own decisions and work to support each other wherever needed. We pride ourselves on this constructive flexibility, and many of us take on multiple roles. Someone might work as both a reviewer and a project manager, for example. When tackling a project, both translators and reviewers work directly with localization process coordinators or managers to ensure the project is delivered to the best of our ability. We strive to have project managers for each of the UNESCO official languages to fully support our linguists. The source language for all of our projects and materials is English, which we then translate as a team into various languages across the globe. Our team is a global community with volunteers from all over the world. We maintain a robust database of linguists capable of translating our projects into the 6 official UNESCO languages, as well as expanding to include additional languages when resources allow. Such a diverse and extensive database is crucial to match the right linguists to the right projects and to ensure that the translations we deliver are consistently of the highest quality. The mission of the localization team is to make Translation Commons resources accessible globally in order to advance linguistic equality across the digital world. This includes a wide range of materials such as our toolkits, guidelines, and training resources. For example, our Zero to Digital guidelines provide valuable tools for Indigenous and at-risk language communities, helping them digitize their languages and preserve their cultural heritage in the digital age. Our volunteers additionally play a vital role in website localization, utilizing industry-standard tools like WordPress to ensure content is accessible to diverse communities. Finally, our subtitling project focuses on making content more accessible to a wider audience. As an organization, we rely on a series of critical processes to guarantee smooth operations. These help us set clear expectations, offer proper training, and provide consistent support to our volunteers, no matter their prior level of experience or the time they have to commit to Translation Commons. So, what are the processes at play? The localization workflow always begins with a translation request. After an initial translation, the project proceeds to the review stage. Reviews are conducted by more experienced linguists, providing an excellent opportunity for translators to learn and grow. We typically conduct a single round of review, but depending on the project type and timeline, we may opt for a second round of review to ensure complete confidence in the final result. We aim to distribute projects evenly. Every word that is translated, therefore, is tracked in our project tracker. We also implement a number of other processes to enhance efficiency and collaboration. An invitation to access tasks in SmartCat is sent straight to the volunteer's email. Files are shared through a secure folder online, rather than being constantly transferred back and forth via email. And when naming project files, we highlight the importance of using clear, descriptive names for better file management and quick identification. These processes let us concentrate our efforts on what matters most. As a non-profit organization, we rely on software that is open source and freely accessible, such as Google, WordPress, and CAT for translation. After joining the team, you'll receive a Translation Commons email account where all communication will take place. You'll be added to our Google group of linguists and will receive announcements of new projects either via Google Chat or your Translation Commons email. The values we uphold are the foundation of our collective success and growth. By maintaining high standards of work, fostering a spirit of teamwork, and engaging in open, positive communication, we can create an environment where everyone thrives. Constructive feedback, both giving and receiving, is essential in helping each one of us improve and reach our full potential. Above all, we embrace continuous learning. Each step forward is an opportunity to grow individually and as a team. Together, we can build something truly remarkable. And none of this work would be possible without our volunteers. We sincerely appreciate all the effort you put in and the value you bring to Translation Commons. In recognition of your hard work, we provide letters of contribution to reflect your crucial impact on our wider projects. When possible, the names of each linguist are credited for their contributions on the final project. For example, they're listed in the credits at the end of the document. Some FAQs. Translators are assigned to a project according to their fit and experience. The reviewers are highly experienced linguists that both serve as mentor figures to new translators, as well as being responsible for the quality of the final product. The exact timeline for projects being awarded depends upon your language pairs. Finally, keep in mind that you're always welcome to explore other paths at Translation Commons. The talent team can help you find something that suits your passion and skills. Translation Commons is an inclusive, diverse, and flexible organisation, and we're always here to assist you. We'd like to end by saying thank you for your interest in joining the localisation team. And if you're ready to take the plunge and join our efforts to support Indigenous and minority languages in the digital age, or if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Very
It was
good.
very good, yeah.
Nice.
Hi everyone, my name is Lauren and I lead the web team at Translation Commons, and in the next couple of minutes I'll share a little bit about who we are and what we do. As the web team, we own the Translation Commons website. Our mission is to build and maintain a platform that supports the Translation Commons mission, empowering Indigenous communities as well as the global language community through accessible digital tools and resources. As you've probably noticed by now, the Translation Commons team is diverse, and so is our audience. So designing for a global audience is a key principle for us, whether that's creating user journeys that are easy to navigate or ensuring content is easy to localize and graphics are globally relevant, and so on. In addition to our external site, our web team also hosts an internal site for our organization, and it's leveraged and maintained by all the teams. The goal is to connect our organization, which has many people working remotely, and be a one-stop shop for our internal resources. Now, all this work is made possible by a growing global team with diverse backgrounds and skills. Our team is designed to make an impact while also gaining real-world experience through various roles. And we do have assigned roles and responsibilities, but the idea is to grow and learn from each other. We have a very open, flexible environment, and you'll often find us sharing learning resources and crowdsourcing ideas and solutions. And we don't work alone, of course. In addition to serving our external audience, we also collaborate tightly with the entire Translation Commons organization, and we work closely with teams like LDI, localization, and marketing to get their content and their resources posted online and localized. Now, to give you a deeper look into what we do, we're always working on a handful of projects. Right now, we're working on a redesign of the Translation Commons website, so keep an eye out for a fresh site coming soon. In addition, you'll find us busy creating and updating pages, maintaining the internal site, and working with the localization team to translate and localize all of our pages and any content updates. We also use many design and developer tools as well as different coding languages, and we're always looking for new tech to work with. And it doesn't stop there. As our team grows, we're hoping to expand our work into website analytics, search engine optimization, content writing, and much more. Every click, code, and page we create makes an impact and helps serve the global community. If you're passionate about making an impact through technology, if you saw anything that you're excited to contribute to, or if you have any ideas, we would love to have you reach out to us and join our team. Thank you.
Okay, and then the next team I want to talk about is our marketing team. And they've been very busy, really kind of honing in on messaging, visual identity in the brand, and trying to get as many kind of clear brand guidelines to really give all our different content types, whether it be website or materials that we publish, a kind of cohesive look and feel. Jeanette mentioned this huge milestone with UNESCO, which is fantastic for Translation Commons in so many levels. And as far as the marketing team is concerned, that really allows them to align messaging along international standards and also kind of boosts their visibility and credibility within the international community, while at the same time kind of maintaining our brand and voice. Then the engineering team, they're really, the engineering team is really there to help not only a lot of the initiatives that Jeanette was talking about earlier, for example, the great stuff with UNESCO, World of Languages, the LDI initiatives and the keyboards, the Morphologizer, but also internally for us. They're helping the localization team with tooling, both for I18N and L10N. They're getting busy playing around with AI and seeing how we can enhance that, as well as trying to centralize all our projects from a code point of view into GitHub and work on our website projects as well. And last but by no means least, I'd like to hand it over to Smita, who's going to tell us about the wonderful talent team.
Thank you, Patrick. You know, when I was listening to Janet talk about what we do at Translation Commons, you know, I'm sure all of you here have worked in companies in corporate where we get paid, right? And your manager is always sending you a reminder that was due, what happened, right? There's a whole infrastructure to make that happen, right? You get paid. There are people doing payroll processing. You know, there is just so much infrastructure that is required to make all of that happen. And guess what? At Translation Commons, all the things that you saw, did you feel that they were pretty complex? They are done by volunteers. Volunteers like you, me, all of us, right? Who are, you know, with their right mind, donating their time to do all of this, right? So, I mean, I was incredibly proud when you were presenting, Janet, that you have created an organization where people wake up every day to help preserve a language, right? So I would request all of you to give a big round of applause for all of our volunteers, everybody, all our advisors, volunteers, please. Some of them are online here. Now I'll tell you why I'm saying this. I'm in HR. I'm in human resources, right? All through, you know, my finance person would call me or the president of my team would call me and say, I want to know what is the effectiveness? What is the return of investment? What is our gross margin profit on this project? Tell me what the salaries are, you know, all of those things. And to think that people do this, you know, we don't have people breathing down anybody's neck, right? They're all doing it for the love of the work that they're doing, right? All right. So like I said, I am a human resources professional. And about 2 years, I had a life-changing situation happen to me. And when last year I came up for air, when the situation had passed, and I said, okay, life is okay now, I was figuring out what do I want to do with the rest of my life. I was a hamster on a wheel, you know, just doing things, very busy, and, you know, thinking, okay, I'm like really making a change or making an impact to the world. But I realized that I wanted to do something more meaningful, more impactful. And I started looking for opportunities where I could bring in my HR expertise. And then I found Translation Commons. I had a call with Janet, and before that, I consider myself to be a fairly informed individual, very informed. But until I spoke to Janet that day in I think March of last year, I used to think digital divide is just means that I don't have access to a computer, or I do not have access to an internet connection. How many of you think that way? Okay, I'm the most uninformed person in this room. Great. But, you know, when I came to Translation Commons, I'm like, oh my God, it's the language. If you don't speak, you know, a language that internet speaks, you know, you are left behind. And that is what propelled me to, you know, to become part of the organization. I have been here for 1 year. And initially I started it as an exercise to pay it forward. I thought, okay, I've done enough, let me contribute. But as I was reflecting back, sitting here listening to Jeanette and all my other colleagues talk, I learned about how much I have learned, right? I am an expert in Google Workspace. I create all the email IDs. Okay, I used to hate Google Workspace before, but now I love it because I've been using it for a year, right? I can even write small programs now. I mean, of course, I liberally use ChatGPT, but to run my reports and all, I do that. So, and just this feeling that, you know, as an HR professional, you know, you're always talking about employee engagement and giving people purpose and all of that, right? Here, the purpose is inbuilt, right? We do not talk about that purpose all the day. It is inbuilt in everything that we do, right? And that's the way it should be. So if ever I go back to, I mean, of course, I'm already doing a part-time job, but if I go back to being what I used to do, I'm going to apply this lesson, that it cannot be, a purpose cannot be something on the wall or on your website or the CEO comes and talks about once a year, right? It has to be built into what you do every day. All right. All right, imagine you wake up one day, nobody can understand you. Alexa doesn't return, right? What you were hoping for, nobody understands you, everything is lost. Imagine how would that feel? And that is happening. You know, can you guess that there are, according to UNESCO, there are about 70,000 languages. Can you guess how many languages are in the danger of disappearing? Half of them, 40%, right? Because they are not being digitized, right? It is an alarming, like when I read the statistics, it just blew my mind. A language is lost every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks. And when you lose a language, it's not just the language. It's the history, it's the nuance, it's the songs, it's the memories, right? I speak 2 languages, English and Hindi, okay? And I am a coach, you know, person who tells you what to do and what not to do. So sometimes so one of the rules of coaching is the person has to be open to receiving your coaching. So you can kind of ask them, are you okay if I give you this advice? So if I'm talking to a person who speaks Hindi, I always tell them, I hold my hands like this. You can only receive if you are like this, right? If you are like this, you cannot receive. Now for me to translate that into English takes me forever, right? It's the language, right? So I found this graphics online. This is a heat map of the world languages. And you can see that black one represents the languages that are already lost all over the world. Vulnerable, definitely endangered, and all of those things, right? And this is somebody actually, you can actually go in and create different aspects of this language map all over the world. And the reason I'm showing you this is that the situation is really drastic, right? UNESCO is saying that we're losing a language every 2 weeks. You know, one fun fact, right? But I don't have to say. It looks like you all, speak Klingon. Okay, so not surprising because of Hollywood and popular culture and all the advertisement and all the geekiness and nerdiness and what have you. There are more resources. Actually, I saw graphics and I couldn't find it a few months ago. The Duolingo, Duolingo had some 27,000 or 287,000 people registered to learn Klingon, which is not even a real language, right? So we need to create a similar level of enthusiasm for digitizing the languages that have real history, right? That have real generational knowledge embedded in them, right? And that's what I think we're all here for today, right? To be able to do whatever we can. I just wanted to show you that, this is just our data from this year so far. We received about 76 or 75 volunteer applications from all over the world. We invite all of them to our onboarding orientation session. We do it every 2 weeks. And about 31, 32 of them are active, right? And guess what? All the things that we're talking about, creating digital keyboards, creating literature and all of those tools, how much time do you think it takes? How much time do you think all our volunteers give? How much? Guess. It's like 5 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours a week. It's not a big investment, right? 5 hours, I'm sure most of you just flip through the entire season of, what was that, White Lotus in one go, right? 5 hours is nothing if you look at it, right? So anyways, I wanted to make a case for all of you and for you to go and communicate this to your friends, your cousins, your nieces and nephews and children who are graduating from college or who want some kind of purpose or exposure, right? Volunteering is a great, great means of developing your skill, right? All the projects that Janet was showing, those are like, I'm sure for linguists, those are like gold, right? And imagine you are getting to work on them, right? You're building your portfolio, you're building your confidence, you're learning so much more about the language industry, right? So whether you are a person starting out, looking to build your career, or somebody who wants to pay it forward like me, who thought that, okay, I'd arrived and now I wanted to contribute. But there's so much learning along the way. So these are some of the roles that we are always looking for volunteers. Go to our website and you'll be able to see all these jobs, right? And like I said, we ask only 5 hours, minimum 5 hours of your time. And 5 hours to make a difference, to save a language, to digitize a language, to save stories, right? I was just telling Craig right now, I grew up in the foothills of Himalaya in India. My parents, typical middle class parents, they spoke dialect at home. It's called Kumauni. They never encourage, actually they discouraged us from learning that language because guess what? They wanted us to speak English so that we could have a better life. But guess what? My daughter hasn't even heard that language. I try very hard to remember some words, but I cannot, right? So there are so many things I used to hear my mom say or my grandma say, and I want to say that to my daughter. I cannot because, my mom passed away, my parents passed away pretty early. So it's very frustrating, right? And so, it has sort of this experience with Translation Commons has personally sort of raised that awareness that one language should not come at the cost of another, right? I mean, every language has its own place in the world, right? So the stories that my grandma told me, I cannot tell the same story to my grandchildren because I will not be able to speak the same language, right? I will, a lot is lost in translation. So I invite all of you to be part of this great mission. Again, 5 hours minimum. That's all it takes, right? And this is a great quote that I love by Winston Churchill. And I want to leave you with this thought. You make a living by what you get. You make a life by what you give, right? So I can only imagine how proud Janet must feel, right? By, and all of you, right? All of us who are part of this organization, we must feel about, if somebody is able to go online and read about their language because somebody took the effort to digitize it. I mean, what a great feeling, right? And so I invite all of you to be part of that feeling for yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Smita. Very inspiring. Thank you to everyone, to all our speakers, to all of you. How much time do we have for Q&A?
We have a few minutes.
So
I think first, to wake everyone up, I think we all need to say kaplunk. That's Klingon for success. So everybody, kaplunk.
Kaplak.
All right, now we'll
Can
take
you
some
can you
questions.
spell that for us in Klingon? Do you-
Q-A-P-L-A-Q.
Got it. Questions in any language except Klingon, please. You can do Elvish.
Yeah, thanks for the. Is this working?
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
Great. Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I was wondering if you could talk more about the process of adding the languages to this to CLDR, because I know that like I would love to be able to be more able to have language packs that like if you have certain applications that are built with IC or ICFrex, which I work on, you could have language packs to download so you can get things like date formatting in your language and other all the other localization, internationalization. Hopefully it's you can have George, who was here a little bit earlier, is doing all his work with inflection. So like you can get all that functionality, right? As you know, I'm everything I'm saying right now, but I would love to see that more for more of the digitally disadvantaged languages. And I was wondering what the process is of getting the coverage for these languages higher, because we're still in a point where like the long tail of languages, the quality of the data in CLDR goes down quite a lot when you get to the long tail, and it doesn't produce like very high quality experiences for the users. And I would love to see what we can do to increase that quality. So I was wondering if you could talk more about like how you all work with CLDR to acquire and contribute that.
So at the moment, we're in the beginning stages of writing a guideline for the digitally disadvantaged communities to have access to CLDR and be able to load their data into it. And then, of course, Unicode has a DDL group, digitally disadvantaged languages, which is also working to acquire the data for CLDR. So we're in for Translation Commons, we're in the very early stages. We're trying to help communities, first of all, to be able to type with keyboards and fonts and be able to type their language and kind of build up some vitality there. And then as a part of that, to build word dictionaries and then actual dictionaries, bilingual dictionaries. And a part of that will be entering data into CLDR. So there's quite a lot to do there.
Just want to add one little thing about the Sunuar pilot that we did. So the Sunuar was specifically addressing all the Unicode process where CLDR is part of that. And we are helping them enter CLDR data. And we are realizing while they're doing it, the problems that they're having or the complications they face, and we're trying to address these in the documents that that Tex mentioned.
The problems you're referring to are creating words that reflect what goes on to a software menu, for example, right? File, edit, help, all of those things have to be defined. They don't exist in many of these languages to begin with because they weren't computer oriented. More questions? Anne-Marie? I'll run with this.
I'm actually super fascinated about the terminology and how communities are being helped to kind of build out their terminology, because I feel like that's one of the things where, we've spent decades inventing terms and all learning what terms mean. So I'd love if you could talk a bit more about how you help communities and how when a community has successfully kind of grown their technical terminology.
Oh, yeah,
So I don't have to-
I'm sorry for that. Yeah, hold on.
Well, do use
Okay.
it now.
Okay, great question, Anne-Marie. And first of all, we cannot impose anything to any community. We can only, help them understand what they need to do.
Do when they're successful or when they're successful?
Okay, I will give you an example of the Maori language. But first of all, before I go to this example, do download the terminology guidelines of Zero to Digital, because it actually informs communities how to go about creating these. Okay, what are the concepts that they need to be addressing? But the example I want to give you is the Maori community, where they realize that there is no better way or good way or one way to make these words. So what they did is they allowed the young people to find these words, and they were monitoring text messages between the younger people that they were passing on, and the younger people would say, oh, I use this word, or I use that word for that email. Okay, and then eventually they found out that one or two of those words, terms, would just catch on. And that catching on then would get them to start evaluating it in the language definition, with the language definition elements, and then they would enter it as an official word, communicate it to the rest of the community, and then people would start using it. But they were very alert to see if there were any changes or if there were any reasons why somebody didn't want to use that word. So, but that meant that they have a team of people who are doing exactly that. And it's up to that community to get that commitment. So when we come to advise people, we can only advise them to get that team to work with them.
Questions? Get it all the way up there. But keep it brief.
Okay. I'm trying to remember what it was. Someone else have a question first?
Any folks online?
Okay, well, we're about at time anyway, so.
What?
I already asked a question, but I'll ask another question. So, Okay, sorry. I'll ask another question, which is, um, I you described earlier in the slides about like, like when you showed the video about how you get translators into the localization tool, um, like what are like I guess it's not entirely clear to me what are the things that the translators are translating, or like are there customers or the clients? Like if I have a like if I have an application, and I want to have it translated into these DDLs, do I go to Translation Commons and upload it? Like, you say that you get some prize if you do like 10,000 words or something like that, or whatever it was. Like, what are they trying? Are you said that they had to translate the COVID? Well, that's stuff like 5 words, right? So like, what are they like? Can you give me a little bit more like clarity on like what the translators are actually doing? Because I didn't really pick that up in the presentation.
Sure. Can you hear me?
I think it's off.
Hello? Yeah. Okay, so first of all, the Zero to Digital series, the guidelines, they're all translated into the 6 European languages UNESCO, plus other languages. So when we have a team of translators that can do Swahili, we'll do Swahili for that, guideline as well. We have subtitles for the videos. So these are being translated by the Translation Commons volunteers. And we also have our website translated in various languages. So all of this is done by the volunteers. On top of that, we have the partners that we work with. So if you remember, I mentioned the open source medical supplies, 70 documents, each document 150 pages, 40 languages, people-centered internet, a newsletter, 6 languages every month. These are the things that our people do. So no, if somebody comes to us and says, we're a nonprofit, can you do a free translation for us? We usually say no, or we send them to Translators Without Borders, because that is what they do. We don't do that. But nonetheless, we do have some partnerships that we will be translating for. And it's a lot.
And like most volunteer organizations, we can only do what our volunteers offer to do and have the skills to do, which is why all of the discussion over volunteering here. So with that, please join me in thanking our speakers. There's nothing on no questions from the chat. Is that right?
Yeah, no question.
Okay. So thank you, everyone. We have a few minutes if you want to connect with other people, do some networking. That would be great. And I'm sure the speakers will be around for a couple more minutes, too, if you want to ask them something direct. And thanks to everyone on the net.
Thank you. Very good.
For you. Yeah, look at the ADR.
I want to make sure I know the name of the language that your parents.
Oh.
MANDE.